Hello everyone, my name is Byungmin Kim from Triple IXR Lab. Today I'll be presenting the paper titled Teaching VLMs to Localize Specific Objects from In-Context Example, published at ICCV 2025. This work explores one of the fundamental gaps in modern vision language models, their limited ability to perform in-context visual learning. The central question is simple: can a large vision language model learn to find the same object in a new scene, given only a few examples? The authors call this ability few-shot personalized or object localization. Over the last few years, we have seen tremendous progress in large vision language models. These models can recognize objects, describe scenes, and answer questions about images with impressive fluency. Yet, despite their strong performance on visual reasoning tasks, they still fail to learn from visual context the way humans do. In context learning, the ability to use a handful of examples to infer something new works remarkably well in LLMs, but much less so in VLMs. A key reason lies in the nature of the data. Most vision datasets provide independent image-text pairs, not temporally or semantically coherent sequences. As a result, VLMs learn object-level recognition, but not context-aware generalizations. To address this limitation, the paper defines a new task called personalized localization. In this task, the model receives n example images, each annotated with a bounding box and a label, and must localize the same object type in a new query image. For example, if we show the model several photos of my cat Snoopkin, the goal is for the model to find Snoopkin in another photo that contains multiple similar cats. This setup demands that the model reason from visual context, not just category labels, and handle ambiguity between semantically close instances. This work makes three main contributions. First, it provides the first comprehensive study of how modern vision language models handle personalized in-context localization. While previous benchmarks focused on captioning or reasoning, none evaluated whether a model can find a specific object purely from contextual examples. The authors show that even the most advanced VLMs still struggle with this ability, revealing an important gap. Second, they propose a data-centric fine-tuning approach called IPLog. It converts object tracking dataset into conversational examples, where the model learns to predict the same object's location in new frames. This approach can be applied to any open VLM, helping it learn contextual visual understanding instead of memorizing object categories. Third, the study demonstrates that this approach generalized across models and scales, from small to very large ones. The performance improvements come not from size, but from better contextual data, establishing IPLog as both a benchmark and a framework for studying in-context localization. This slide defines the core setup of the study. The model receives a few example images, each annotated with a bounding box and a label indicating the target object. These examples typically come from video tracking dataset where the same object appears across several frames. The task is to predict the bounding box of that same object in a new query image. In short, the input is a few visual examples with annotations, and the output is the localized position of the same object in another scene. This few-shot personalized localization task challenges the model to reason over context rather than recall static category knowledge. The authors propose a data-centric approach named IPLOC, short for In-Context Personalized Localization. The idea is to teach the model to recognize objects not through textual cues but through visual context. They reformulate training data as conversations between a user and an assistant. The user provides support examples, images, bounding boxes, and pseudonames, and the assistant must predict the location of the same object in a new frame. This conversational design mimics in-context reasoning, allowing the model to accumulate contextual information across examples before making a prediction. The training data come from large-scale object tracking dataset such as TAO, LASOT, and GOT. These datasets include long sequences of frames showing the same object moving across time. Each sequence is converted into a user-assistant dialogue. The user provides a few annotated frames, and the assistant predicts the object location in a new frame. Through these dialogues, the model learns how the same object changes in position, scale, and lighting, enabling it to connect different appearances of the same instance. Each training dialogue can include multiple examples or shots before the query. In one-shot training, the model sees one example, and in 4-shot and 8-shot cases, several examples form a richer context. The model is expected to integrate information from all preceding examples when predicting the next bounding box. This setup encourages the model to infer object identity and continuity from visual patterns, simulating human-like reasoning when recognizing familiar objects under different conditions. A major innovation is pseudonym replacing. Instead of using true category names such as dog or helicopter, each object is assigned a random pseudonym like Jamie or Nora. This prevents the model from using its pre-trained knowledge of object categories and forces it to rely purely on the visual cues provided in the examples. As a result, the model's reasoning becomes genuinely contextual and personalized. It learns to associate appearances, not labels. This technique effectively reduces shortcut learning and strengthens through true visual understanding. During both training and testing, the model's predicted bounding boxes are displayed visually. This shows how each dialogue leads directly to a spatial prediction. The approach bridges conversational reasoning with spatial grounding, demonstrating that a visual language model can reason in natural language and simultaneously perform geometric localization. It turns abstract dialogue-based reasoning into tangible spatial understanding, an essential step toward interpretable multimodal AI. This slide introduces the fine-tuning setup. Fine-tuning was conducted with LoRa for efficient adaptation on models like Quan, Intern VL2, and Lava OV. The authors used multiple prompt formats to train the model, each describing the localization task in slightly different ways. Some prompts ask the model to predict the bounding box of the target, while others phrase it as locate the same object in the next image. By exposing the model to several forms of instruction, they help it learn to generalize across linguistic variations and interpret the localization task more robustly. Evaluation is conducted on three benchmarks: PDM, PERSEC, and ICL LASOT. PDM combines real and synthetic images, PERSEC focuses on personalized segmentation, and ICL LASOT involves long-term tracking sequences. Each dataset is evaluated in 1-shot, 2-shot, 4-shot, and 8-shot conditions using mean intersection over union (MIOU). This setup ensures the model's performance is tested across both still image and temporal reasoning contexts. Across all benchmarks, baseline models such as GPT-4o and Lava-OV showed weak performance on personalized localization. They often fail to predict correct bounding boxes or confuse similar instances, showing that standard instruction tuning doesn't give models enough contextual awareness. After fine-tuning with IPlog, performance improved dramatically. For example, the fine-tuned Quant2VL 72 billion model reached out 55% MIOU, far exceeding the baselines. Moreover, when pseudonym regularization was applied, replacing real class names with random ones, the performance increased even further by roughly 7 to 12 percentage points across datasets. This proves that removing explicit category names forces the model to rely on true visual cues, leading to stronger contextual reasoning. Overall, these results confirm that context-based data design, not model size, is what drives meaningful improvement in visual reasoning. This is the two examples to illustrate the effect of the number of shots. In the one-shot case, the model received only one dialogue-style prompt before inference. It failed to correctly localize the target object. In the four-shot case, the model was given four dialogue examples containing the same objects, and this time it succeeded in predicting the correct bounding box. At first glance, we might expect that providing more shots always helps. More examples should mean more context for the model to reason from. However, the next slide will show that this intuition doesn't always hold true. Here we analyze what actually happens when the number of shots increases. Surprisingly, in most cases, accuracy decreases as more shots are added. The reason is that long visual context introduce noise and distraction. Current transformer-based vision language models have limited ability to maintain attention over extended visual inputs, causing them to lose focus on the target object. Even IPlog shows this trend, though to a much smaller degree than the baseline models. In some cases, it even performs slightly better with more shots, showing that its contextual data design mitigates the degradation. Overall, this result highlights a key limitation in current VLMs. They can yet reason consistently over long visual sequences. This slide presents a prompt-level analysis of model behavior. The authors examined how different prompt formulations affected localization accuracy using models such as Quan and InterVL2. They found that the phrasing of the instruction itself matters a lot. When the prompt was short and vague, the model often ignored the instructions and generated captions instead of bounding boxes. But when the prompt explicitly requested coordinates, for example, please provide the bounding box of the target object, the model successfully produced correct spatial outputs. These results show that large vision language models are still very sensitive to linguistic structure. A small difference in wording can change whether the model performs reasoning or just describes the image. Therefore, prompt design remains a critical factor in training and evaluating localization tasks. In conclusion, this study established the first benchmark for personalized in-context object localization and introduces a data-centric fine-tuning method to improve VLM contextual reasoning. IPLog achieves consistent gains across models and datasets while maintaining general reasoning ability. However, there are limitations. It currently handles only single object localization, and performance degrades in very long contexts. The data generation process is computationally expensive, and the evaluations remain mostly in synthetic video-derived settings. Still, the findings mark an important step toward context-driven perception and open new research directions in multimodal AI. In summary, this paper demonstrates that large vision language models can learn personalized spatial reasoning through contextual learning. It bridges textual understanding with spatial grounding, showing that conversational models can also perceive visually in a grounded, context-aware way. Thank you for listening.